This is your friendly neighborhood atheist. Hey everyone, welcome back to The Perspective. I'm your host, Ethan, and alongside me is Katy. Katy, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us from across the pond.
Yeah, it's quite late here.
So what time is it?
It's just gone 1 a.m.
Oh, that is
So
late.
it's Wednesday now.
Do you work in the morning?
Yes, I do. I've got a normal 9 to 5.
I'm sorry. I do too, but I don't have to stay up that late. So thank you for doing this.
Yeah, no problem. No, I quite enjoy it. It's something to break up the lockdown, you know.
YouTube has pretty much saved my mental health during lockdown because I am a people person. I love karaoke. I want to be on stage. And it just all stopped. And it was like, oh. And then I found this outlet, and it's been awesome because I get to talk to a bunch of people all the time and have fun and learn. Like, that's one of my favorite parts is I have grown so much and gotten to meet some of the coolest people.
Yeah, no, definitely me too. Like I have just like a part of me that needs to be at the pub talking to people about their like wacky beliefs. And like so these kind of YouTube calling shows are great for that. I just need to be drunk, that's all. Which I'm not today, but you know.
Well, good. That would suck if you were drunk. So if you could, it's your first time on YFNA. Tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everyone. So my name's Katy Montgomerie, and I'm basically a dickhead who argues on Twitter a lot. And for some reason, people follow me. I'm a feminist, and I argue about LGBT issues. I'm also a guitarist in a thrash death metal band, if anyone likes. Yeah, so my band is called Dehumanaut. And I'm just going to do a little bit of boasting. Metal Hammer, which is quite a big magazine in the UK for metal music, listed me as one of the top 13 guitarists to look out for in 2021. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty hyped about that. I didn't expect it either, so that was really cool.
I would be too.
And then also I have a YouTube channel where I talk about trans issues and have like a news show about what trans rights stuff has happened in the week. So that's all my things.
One of the questions I got from an audience member was how difficult or exhausting is it to deal with LGBTQ issues regularly and so often? Do you have to step away, take breaks? How does it impact you?
Yeah, it can be very difficult. I think it's more difficult to do like debate any issue that affects you personally. I'm quite good at sort of taking myself emotionally out of discussions and being able to find a place where I can meet someone with common ground and discuss it, even if it is kind of a bullshit position. But what does burn me out is like, if I was just having a discussion, if I just met some random person and they said, I think this, and I said, well, I think that's wrong, and we had a discussion, then I could take myself out emotionally and just have the debate. But if it's like an organization or a person with a lot of power or a journalist or a politician, and they have a real chance of, you know, they're campaigning hard against my actual rights and it could affect my actual future, it can make me feel very kind of desperate. And that's the thing that gets to me. Like when, you know, they announce, oh, we're going to try and ban people from the toilets or, you know, that kind of stuff. I can argue that, but if it might actually happen, it's so stressful and it's like a constant weight on your mind. So yeah, I do burn out sometimes.
It's from the outside, it can be incredibly easy for people to say, like, why can't you just stay calm? But when your rights are at stake and it affects you personally, it's way more difficult to remove your emotion.
Yes, it is. I think that it can be very easy to miss how much more difficult it is when it affects you personally. I think that the like constant weight of worrying about your future is the worst bit. If someone comes up to me and calls me a load of horrible names, it's not nice, but it's not bad. Like compared to, I mean, it's bad, but in comparison to fearing about what happens if I have to leave the country, or, you know, this kind of thing, it's just not the worst part at all. And I kind of prefer, if someone's going to be, a bigot, I'd rather they call me a load of names than were polite to me and then campaign to take away my rights. So
That's true.
Yeah, it can be pretty tiring.
I can imagine. Are you ready to jump into calls?
Yeah.
All right, sweet. Let's get to our first caller. We have Karen from Illinois. You are on with Ethan and Katy. How's it going?
Hi, Karen.
Hi. How are you?
I'm good,
sorry.
thanks.
Cut out a little bit. We're doing good.
Good. I think we were talking over each other for a second.
Oh, sorry about that.
Can you hear me good now? Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes there's a small delay, so I apologize if occasionally we talk over each other.
The delay's probably worse for me because I'm so far away from you guys.
That's a good point.
Yeah, you're overseas. So this is cool. This is my first podcast.
Well, awesome. Thank you for calling us. What was it you wanted to talk about?
Well, I have two different ones, and they're both a little different. So, do you want to hear my story about angels, or would you like to hear about the ghosts that come out in my bedroom?
Katy, I will, since it's your first time here, I'll let you decide which one.
I'm more excited by the ghosts.
Me too.
Okay, wicked.
You want to hear the ghost story? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
The story may not be. It's not going to be a super long story because it's. So that's why I put two out there. So we could probably get into the second one. But okay, here's the ghost story. It was going on, and I lived over in Romeoville, in Illinois, up by Chicago,
Okay.
and it's a townhouse in Honeytree, and I don't know. They say Romeoville is kind of built on some Indian burial ground.
I've heard that.
And the Des Plaines River sits right by our house, which Leo and Clark, or Lois Clark, come down that river, and they traded with the Indians right there on 135th Street. So the Indians were trading right down there. So yeah, I heard that there was some Indian burial grounds right through here, but I don't know what it was for sure that came into my house. But it was scratching in the walls, and you could hear it. And then my husband and I went to the bedroom, and we had heard it for several nights in a row. And we're like, "What the heck? There must be a mouse in the wall." We're thinking, it'll go away. So we go in the bedroom, and I'm like looking out the bedroom door. All of a sudden, there's this glow under the door, and I'm like, "What the heck is that glow?" The lights are out, and I kept on staring at it, and there was like a black center, and then there was a white glow going. And it was going back and forth, and I'm going, "Wow, that's weird." And I was never really afraid. I guess I thought that was all that was going to be, and I was like, "What?" I thought in my mind, "What is this? I wonder what it is." And the minute I thought, "I wonder what this is," it came in underneath the crack in the door, and it swirled on the floor, like swirling around and around, and it grew to be 12 inches tall. And then it popped itself up, got more energy, and went to be 3 feet tall. And it was all that bluish gray matter. Then it's popping even higher, and it got to be 6 foot tall. And it's hovering over in the corner of the bedroom. I'm like, "Oh, no, this can't be." I knew I had a ghost. I didn't want to see a ghost. And I'm like, "Oh my God," I'm like, I can't deal with it. And my husband, for some strange reason, it made me feel like he wasn't even in the room. It took me away to where I felt alone. But then I was trying to tell them after it left, and he goes, "I was right here. I was sitting right." I go, "I was alone." He goes, "No, I was here." And I was, oh man, it made me feel so alone. But it swirled its way. It stood there like that. Then to get back out of the room, it never said anything, never did anything. But it had to maneuver its way back down in the energy level. It had to go down to 3 foot tall, 12 inches down to the bottom of the floor, and go back underneath the door.
So when you say it, were you saying like this thing that was growing, like it was a light, or what was it?
It was a whitish, bluish color, like it was like ectoplasm or something, like, it was matter, but it was like the grayish, bluish, white. And it was kind of looked like a cloud to a certain extent.
And when you said that your husband, you felt alone with your husband, like, did he see it, and did he also feel a similar way?
he described the whole thing to me after, you know, I kept on trying to tell him what I saw. And he goes, no, I saw it. Here's what it was and everything. And I go, why did I feel alone? You know, I was like thinking it was probably aimed at me, you know, for me, but he was in the room, you know, because it made me, like I said, feel so alone. I have had ghost experiences since I've been like 6, 7 years old. And they started out here in Romeoville.
So
and,
you, just so I understand correctly, you and your husband both saw the same exact thing, which looked
same
like
exact thing, exactly. And it, you couldn't, it had a littler top, so, but you couldn't, the matter, it was just like matter, but it had a littler top on it, but then, you know, kind of like it was like almost like Christmas tree-ish, where it had a smaller top and then it expanded out in matter on the bottom. But
so,
it was definitely,
so you were saying you think it was a ghost. Like, what makes you think it was a ghost over some other kind of, like, could it, like you were saying, you've seen an angel. Could it have just been a different type of angel, or like an alien or something?
you know, in another matter, I've seen an alien too. So I don't know. And
so how can you tell the difference between the three? How do you tell the difference between an angel, a ghost, and an alien if you've seen all three?
You know, I don't know that answer. I really don't. I speculated that that's what it was a ghost. It was knocking over. Things had been falling in the basement, like boxes were falling, and then it sounded. This has been going on for a while. So before this came under the door, so it was making lots of noise in the basement when we weren't in the basement. It was knocking over boxes, and it was turning on lights, and it was just doing weird things, you know. So in that, when you think about that, when you read ghost stories, that's what they say that you know, that's what ghosts do. So that's, I guess, where I put it in the ghost perspective.
Right. Yeah. I guess because it sounds most like what culturally we would like attribute to ghosts, rather than you knew for sure. It just most matches the characteristics that you've read about.
So is it?
Right.
Would you? Are you in agreement that something did happen, but we don't necessarily know what it was at this point? Like, it could technically be anything?
Yeah, it could have been. But it was definitely that I didn't see it alone, so it was definitely not my mind. You know, it was, my husband did see it too.
It's all, I always, when more than one person sees it, I wish there was a way to I always wish we could go back in time and investigate things. Like, I want to be able to see something like this happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have as much activity at the house that I'm living in right now as I've had in my other houses. I had about 3 years ago, we had a puzzle that something was playing with the puzzle, and it was when the sun was going down. It was a wooden puzzle, and it didn't have any pieces in it, and it had all the noises that you could make with, like, a train, a siren, an airplane, and something would connect. When it was getting to be towards sundown, these noises would start going off on this puzzle, and it would be every day. And the way it was celestial or something, because when it was summertime, the noises would come later at night, like at 8:30, closer to 8:30, 9. But when it was wintertime, it was like at 4:15, 4:30.
So is this something that happens to you, like, regularly? Is that correct?
Yes.
Is there any way to set up, like, do you have an in-home camera, or is
That's
there
what I
any
was
way
gonna ask.
we could possibly somehow record one of these events so we can take a look at it?
Like I said, we could try, but like it's calmed down a whole lot since that puzzle thing. I got a hold of Will County Ghost Hunters and this other guy that was an investigator, and he was listening in on it and everything with a recorder, and he was even saying it was bizarre, but then he couldn't get it to communicate with him. And my daughter went and put all the pieces back inside the puzzle and put the puzzle in a box, and she goes, "That's enough." I go,
you know,
she goes, "This is just kidding." You know, every night it was the same thing.
I didn't know there was a Will County Ghost Hunters. I'm going to actually have to call them after this show and talk to them. I didn't know there was anyone like that around me.
Oh, yeah. There's Will County Ghost Hunters, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I am so calling them tomorrow because I want to see what they have on tape and recorded,
Oh,
because
they probably got a lot of stuff.
that would be awesome.
I think would come out and investigate, but my house, like I said, right now is kind of calm, and I'm kind of glad for it because my daughter is pregnant, and so you know, it's nice to have. I haven't had a calm house. Since I was little, I've lived in active houses.
Well,
and,
I will say
all kinds of stuff.
I will say this: I think it's awesome that you're open to the possibility that it might not be ghosts, but it could be anything. And if possible,
It could be a dark angel. Yeah.
If possible, I would say set up a camera, because I would love to actually be able to see one of these and follow up with you at another time, if possible.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was telling you the story earlier, but I could tell you this takes about 3-4 minutes. When I lived in Bolingbrook.
Oh, sorry. We try and keep it like limited to one per caller. But Katie, did you have any other questions?
I guess so. You felt like this ghost or whatever it was like trying to communicate with you. Have you ever attempted to communicate with, these experiences that you've been having? Like, and have they, in your opinion, communicated back? Like, you could say to one, like, do this if you are a ghost, and do this if you're an alien, and do this if you're a wizard. Just to kind of work out which ones are which.
I've asked who it was, and it came out that one of our spirits, they said we have a few, but one of them was my husband's sister, and she had been murdered. So we played with the Ouija board over at the house on Birchwood, which I would not recommend that to anybody.
Well, now I want to go do that.
Yeah, I've never done a Ouija board.
Ouija board, it really, it can actually communicate with you. It really can, because I asked the Ouija board once who was going to win a race at the racetrack, and it spelled out the whole damn name. It was a 6 words of a racehorse, and then I went and bet on it, and it was like, I couldn't believe that horse was running.
So here's
like, the Ouija board knows.
here's something to try if you do a Ouija board again. Next time you do it, record it, but have everybody who's doing it blindfolded. Because in most cases, once the people are either blindfolded, the spirit or whatever's happening is no longer able to correctly spell these phrases out. One instance in particular, when they blindfolded the people, without them knowing, they rotated the board, and then the whatever you want to call it, the hands went ahead and moved to where they thought the letters were, but since it was upside down, they weren't going to the right places. So I would totally recommend giving that a shot.
Oh yeah, that'd be interesting. Yeah, awesome. Definitely.
Well, Karen, I thank you for taking the time to call. I am definitely calling Will County Ghost Hunters tomorrow and going to see what kind of information I can get for them. But yeah, I would just encourage yourself to, as you might already be doing, continue to ask questions so we can figure out what is actually happening.
Okay.
Thank you, Karen. I hope you have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye, guys.
Yeah, you're totally a natural at this.
Thank you. Good.
So I'm right outside of Chicago, Illinois, and I had been looking for local ghost hunter groups, but I didn't know there was one right by me. So this is going to be awesome.
I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't know there were ghost hunter groups. I thought that was just films and stuff. Yeah.
No, they're all over the US.
Wow. I wonder if there's one in my area.
Yeah, you should check that out. They'll bring in all this equipment for recording sound. Oh, I wish Brian was here right now because he could explain it. They have one of these like electric doodad thingies that picks up some type of vibration or something. But it's always fascinating. And unfortunately, some of these ghost hunters do charge people.
Yeah, I wondered if that was the case.
Yes, not all of them, but there is a great deal of them who will tell you you have a ghost infestation and then tell you they charge you to get rid of it.
Oh, okay. So they do like exorcisms and stuff as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, people still in the US, although I don't know how common it still is, but it does happen, get exorcisms performed on them. Like we had
there was oh sorry.
No, please.
I was going to say one of the metal musicians that I know follow. I kind of do you remember which band? It might have been Mayhem. He it's like a satanic metal band, and he went to America to get an exorcism done on him, as part of a documentary. And I think that both halves were making a documentary, so the band was doing a documentary about our satanic drummer gets an exorcism, and then the pastor was doing a documentary about we're doing an exorcism on the most satanic band from Norway or wherever it was.
I still think it's awesome that you're a metal guitarist. My favorite, I don't know if you'd consider it metal, but one of my favorite, I guess, more rock bands is Disturbed.
Okay, yeah.
I am obsessed. I've been obsessed with them since high school. But I also like Pantera. I don't really get into death metal, but I do overall still like heavy metal.
My favorite Disturbed album is the 10,000 Fists or whatever it's called. It's a good album.
Yes, and I wish I could sing like him. And I actually remember, so when I was in high school and, well, I guess a little bit older, I was very, very right-leaning. I was complete polar opposite. And I loved him, except when he got political, I'd be like, why can't he keep his politics to himself? It would drive me nuts. So I was incredibly close-minded when I was.
Well, Pantera were probably more your scene at the time then. There's some dubious politics coming from there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you ready to get to our next caller? I believe this one is a UFO, if I'm remembering correctly. Jonathan, you're on with Katy and Ethan. Are you there?
Hi.
Jonathan. Hey, how are y'all?
Good. How are you?
Good, thanks.
I'm good.
Was it a UFO?
No. We actually spoke earlier today on Facebook. I believe it was posted to be white. It should be
this Jonathan. I remember now. How's it going?
It's going good, man. How are y'all?
I'm doing good. So to a little background on this, Katy, we had a disagreement which started out heated but then calmed down. And I had asked him to reach out and call the show. He made a post, and could you tell me what the post said? Because I don't want to misquote it or take you out of context.
Oh, it's fine. It was Canoe Reeves, okay? So it's with a bunch of pistols aimed at him. And all it was to, and, it's just typo. It says to be white is now a crime.
Okay, so that's what I remember what I meant to ask you. Why is it?
I hope y'all can understand me, man. My accent's different. I'm from the South. South is different. So.
Oh yeah, you're good. We can totally understand you.
Just about. I hope you can understand my wacky English accent. So.
Oh yes, absolutely. English accent is awesome, man. Awesome.
So why? What I meant to ask you is, why is it? Do you feel that way?
Oh, so sorry. Can I just check that? So this is a cartoon that was suggesting that it's like a crime to be white. Is that what I heard?
Yeah. So it was essentially there was
basically
Keanu Reeves in the center, and a bunch of guns around him, kind of inferring that it's more difficult to be white than anything else. Is that accurate, Jonathan?
Yeah, along those lines. I mean, it's not, adamant as far as being white is not the most, I'm trying to look for the word here. Being white is not the most insignificant person you could be. But it's just, let me slow down a little bit.
Sure.
The political context that we're in now, with everything going on, it's just like all of a sudden that everyone's jumped on the bandwagon that, you know, to be white now is you're racist, you're supremacist, you're domestic terrorist. And it's just escalating to the point that eventually it's going to be almost a crime to be white. That's basically the point of the satirical cartoon.
So I've heard people saying similar things to like what you're saying, though as a white person, I've never felt that I've been called any of those things. Like I've heard people say, you know, white people participate in society which is structured in a way that advantages white people over people of other races, which I think, well, for me, I think that sounds right from my experiences and from what I've seen. And I think that maybe sometimes people feel like they're being told just by being white, they're being racist. And I don't feel like I've ever personally been called racist just for being white, or I've certainly never been called a terrorist. Do you feel like that's an experience you've actually had, or is that like something that your friends have had, or just something that you've seen on the news? Or
well, my job is I do street photography, so I'm on the streets a lot. Okay, so I mingle with all different types of people, all different races. So lately, and I'm sure you're aware of the politics of U.S.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
You know, yeah, you got the. So since January 6th, there's been this radical shift towards the old America and the new America, basically, is what I see it as. So they look at whites who kind of have the old tradition. All they want to do is be free. They don't want government impeding everything they do. So those are the people that's being pushed into this racist aspect. When, if you really look at it, and Ethan is the one I really wanted to have the conversation with, basically on this, because you say you were a Republican.
Yeah.
Okay. And you know how the Republican stronghold is. Okay. So they're saying that, you know, 75, 80% of whites in this country are racist. Okay. And by no means do I agree with that. By no means. And I don't think you do either.
So no, and to kind of touch base on what you said, I know exactly how you feel, only because growing up, I should say in my mid-20s, that's when I started to feel that way. And I have since changed my position, because what I found was there is a small chunk of, we'll just call I don't like lumping people together, but there is a small group of the left, and it's a very minuscule portion that does like to rip apart anything you have to say and just look at the negative and try and tear you down. But it's such a small portion. And unfortunately, what I noticed was right-leaning media would take that small portion of this population and paint it as, hey, this is the whole left. They're all coming after you. They want to tear you down. They want the government to control everything you do. And for me, once I started to recognize that I was being manipulated by the media, essentially to tear us apart, my views started to change. Especially like when I started to talk with more Black individuals and more people from the LGBTQI community, I started to learn like it wasn't as, for me, as hard as I thought it was. And, you know, Katy can attest to this, like her human rights are at stake. You know, you and I have, in my opinion, a big advantage because we don't have the struggles that other people have to go to. You know, we weren't, like the Black community, we weren't slaves since, you know, for all of history, or for all of American history. We've had it pretty easy going. And I don't know where I was going with that. My brain trailed off.
That's fine.
So I've got
The conversation should be, especially with Katy over in there in England, especially the LGBTQ. I'm not real familiar with those movements at all, because I just, that's just not my circle. But
that's cool.
Do you understand what I'm saying, Katy?
Yeah. So I've got one sort of comment on. You mentioned that like some people say like, oh, most people are racist, and I guess that with lots of these like descriptions like racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, I think it's worth sort of like thinking about what these words mean. And if by like malicious, vindictive hatred, like if you say, there's this person and they absolutely hate women, or they absolutely hate, people of other races, then that's a very extreme version. So you would definitely call someone like that a racist, obviously. But I think when we're talking about racism and sexism and stuff, or at least how I use the words, I also mean people who have like an irrational prejudice, and that doesn't have to be malicious. So for example, if I thought that like all gay men were like weak and couldn't, do manly things, and, that they were like pathetic or something, I might think that because I grew up being told that, and I might be like, as I thought that since as a child. But that wouldn't mean that it was hatred. That wouldn't make me a malicious, vindictive person. But it would still be an irrational, kind of not very fair thing for me to believe. And if someone said to me, oh, well, that's homophobic, I might think, well, I don't hate gay people. That's ridiculous. You're calling me this name and like, go away. But they would be right, because I'm not hateful. I am still kind of believing something that's kind of rubbish and harmful for them. And I think when people have pointed out something I've said in the past, that's ableist or that's sexist or something, it can be easy to take offense and be like, gosh, they're calling me a horrible person. But actually, I think it's more a chance for me to hear what they're saying and think, oh, is this perception I have rational? Is this something that I know is based on statistics and evidence and from meeting thousands of people like this? Or is it just some cultural nonsense that I've picked up? And so if we just use this kind of definition for racist that can mean hateful people, but usually means ignorant people, then lots of people probably are a little bit racist in certain aspects, because, society does kind of stereotype people. And I guess that might be the difference that you hear when they say lots of people are racist.
I think my main issue is what I see here in this country at this point in time is that, let's just touch on what you talked about as far as rights. Okay. So in the U.S., we're all free here. You can say what you want to say. It should not offend you. If it does offend you, it's just words. It's no one acting out. So if you paint someone as racist, and you talk about a racist, if they're racist towards homophobic people or gays or lesbians or whatever, if they're racist towards those people, or blacks, they don't like blacks, they're racist towards blacks, they will not live with blacks. A racist will not live with them. They will not shop with them. They will not dine with them. That is a racist. And they've taken racist, the perspective of it, and just painted it with a broad stroke of a brush. And most of the people here are not racist. They may be prejudiced because that's how they're raised, or that's their beliefs.
That's kind of what I was going for, yeah. So I guess if there are some people who are, say, prejudiced against people of certain races,
right. And there's always going to be people who are racist. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to speak over you, but you're never going to get prejudice out of every person. And if you let government start taking control and start making laws to where people have to do this, then how are you free anymore?
Well,
none of us will be free.
How were the people who are being prejudiced against free in the first place? So this is something that I guess when you think about huge groups of people, like if it's talking about men and women, like there are so many women and there's so many men that if one place decided that it wasn't going to serve women, then it would just go bust, because everyone, you know, knows women are just shop somewhere else and they just wouldn't survive. But if they were targeting a much smaller group, if they were targeting a much smaller group like trans people, which I'm a member of, then if they said we're not going to serve trans people, then 99.9% of people would still, like, most people don't even know a trans person.
I understand what you're saying.
And so then all that would mean is that I just
up there, but I don't see anyone just saying, okay, you're trans and we're not going to let you in this restaurant.
But I guess that originally they used to say that about Black people and Irish people and stuff. And the only reason they don't anymore, well, you know, culture has progressed, but also the laws have made it illegal for you to say my restaurant doesn't serve Black people. And I think, like, you can worry about your freedom, you know, that's a valid concern to have. But I do think a law saying you're not allowed to say no Black people in my restaurant, I think that's like, you could say that's taking some freedom, but the freedom it's taking is giving so much more freedom to the Black people who were being targeted by that. It's like a worthwhile trade-off, because you don't really lose anything. Like, technically you lose some freedom to make a certain choice, but that choice is terrible. And like, the little bit of freedom that you lose is such a big gain for millions of people that I feel like it's a worthwhile trade-off, because otherwise the people with all the power have all the freedom and everyone else has no freedom, and the laws are just trying to balance it.
So I see where you're going with the laws are trying to balance it, but where does it end? Because they're not just balancing it, they're forcefully doing it. So, I mean, a lot of people use slavery. Slavery happened in this country. I've never owned a slave. My family's never owned a slave. My family's family was poor as dirt. They never owned a slave. Okay. So, they had to have laws to do away with that terrible period of time. Okay. But that terrible period of time is done now. It's done. So you don't need laws to say, look, Black people can't come in this restaurant anymore, because no one's going to tell a Black man, you can't come in my restaurant and eat.
But people do. There are people who you would describe as like real racists. You know, there are some real proper racists, and they will still do that. And they might make their own little communities, or they might get in charge of a town somewhere, and then all the Black people living in that town will have a terrible life. You know, there are always going to be racists.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think about like
the
KKK.
There's always going to be racist. Go ahead, Ethan.
Oh, sorry. So the KKK went through a phase of declining, and last time I checked, unfortunately, they seem to be on the rise again. So there is still like pure hatred by some people, and they would, if they had the ability, would stop Black people from, you know, eating in their restaurants. And it's hard to believe that you look on TV, you don't really see it that often, but it does. Unfortunately, it happens. Like, there are some terrible people out there that genuinely want to oppress others and think other races are below them. So I think we still do need those laws in place. But additionally, I think an important distinction to make is right now, you and I have the freedom to say what we want. So for example, I could right now, which I would never, I could say the N-word publicly. I will not get arrested for that. I won't even get in any trouble by the law. My video will get taken down and I'll suffer the social repercussions of that. But
I'll hang up straight away.
I mean, I would never say that. But it's still not illegal. Like, we still have freedom of speech. We just don't necessarily have freedom of speech without social consequences. Additionally, like, I have a regular full-time job. The company, if they see me publicly say something like that, they should have the freedom to be able to terminate me immediately if I act out like that against the company's best interest.
But that's no longer freedom of speech. It's just words. It does not mean that you actually mean it. If I was to use the N word and I have lots of black friends. I don't use the N word, but if I did, it's my right to speak how I want to speak. It's not actions. It's just words. You know,
but then they can speak how they can speak
say.
too. They can speak back, can't they? That's
The thing
like
is,
the consequence.
And
Yeah.
the reason I get at this, if you're trying to make it a law where you can't speak certain things, and like he said, the platforms that we're on, as far as social media, they will wipe you out in a heartbeat. If you say something that is against their narrative, that they deem illegal. And this is changing day by day. It's getting worse and worse. It's not just going to be for black people. It's going to be for things, if you disagree with what their narrative or their agenda is, eventually you will be deplatformed. So there has got to be a line drawn. If not, we're all going to lose our right to speak, and none of us could even have this conversation together anymore because we won't be able to. That is the reason I say what I say.
So let me ask you this. If, let's say right now you own a restaurant, and you have black employees, and I come inside and I start just shouting the N-word at them, should you have the freedom as a business owner to ask me to leave?
Absolutely. Yes. It's my business. That is my private property by me owning that business. And I can't ask that customer to leave. And I can't also ask that customer to never return.
Exactly.
It's private property once you own a business.
That's what Twitter.
I don't want that customer base. You know what I mean? There's always going to be racism. And what I'm trying to tell you is racism is on both sides. We have a double standard in this country right now. Whites can't say certain things without being deplatformed or censored or just.
You can't say racist.
You know, like you let go from your job. But there's also people on the other side who are saying very derogatory things towards white. It's a double standard. There's no.
But it's worth. I think with these
platforming them.
With these like double standards that you're talking about, you're treating it as if like these groups are equal in the power dynamic. You know, if a group of black people did say something about me as a white person, and they said some slur or they said blah, you know, Katie's white and therefore she's terrible, like that doesn't affect me in the same way as if we were all doing that about them, because we don't have the like social systematic power stacked against us in the way that they do. We don't have like centuries of oppression. We don't have centuries of oppression that like history that they do have, and it does affect like the power dynamics. So you know, if we were to pretend that everything was equal, then it might be double standards.
I can't agree with you though, because at one time, yes, is there systematic racism within the police departments in this country? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've never.
So it just doesn't affect me.
Politicians in this country, period, because all of them are deceitful. Every single one of them. And all it is about power. But the thing is, they are using race to divide us. We are past the point of all of that slavery that y'all are talking about. It's gone. Everybody's free. We had an African American president for 8 years.
So like you say, much
racism. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, like you say, there is systemic racism in the police force, and what that means is we have it too in the UK. So in the UK, it's different, but we definitely have it in the UK, and it means that every single one of my black friends, all of them, have been that I've talked to, that I've asked about this. Sorry, or all of like several black people that I know closely who I've talked to about this have been just stopped by the police for no reason. And I've never had that. And so just those little things, it's just a constant reminder that in this country, even if the laws might say we're equal, even if slavery ended how many hundred years ago, like you're not being treated the same. And like that is oppression, and it can really affect how people see things. And it means that when they say, you know, if allegedly someone does say something about me as a white person, it just doesn't carry any weight, because I know that the police aren't going to randomly stop me. I know that if I did get in trouble with the police, they would believe me instantly, because, you know, everyone listens to white women. And it's just there's this kind of context constantly surrounding so many actions.
I don't know what it's like where you live, but where I live, it don't matter what fucking color you are. The police gonna fuck with you if anybody says anything about you. If you look suspicious, they're fucking with you.
But they are more likely to think that black people look suspicious.
Over here in the U.S.
They are, yes. Your police are a bit more intense than ours, but it's even in both our countries.
They're out of control. They're militarized over here, and they don't give a damn what color you are. I mean, black
they do though.
But you know why? It comes down to the haves and the have-nots.
Yes,
that's basically what it comes down to. How many police do you see fucking with the wealthy African Americans in this country? It all comes down to money.
It does, and it's worth pointing out.
The poor class areas are where the police congregate in this country. I can walk out my door and prove it to you. Helicopters are flying right now.
We're not arguing that.
One thing I would point out there, like I do agree that for sure they'll target, they go after the poor people, and rich people can do what they want, and it's terrible. And in America, if you're a billionaire, you're just above the law. Exactly. However, yes, so for sure.
In this country, and your country too, if we as a people, all of us together, decided that the wealth was the problem, if we had better wages, if we had better money, all of us won't have these problems with the police.
So I just
don't have people who want to do what they do, though. There's still people out here that's doing drugs and all that stuff. I'm not getting that. But the thing is, if you're using the media, and then you're using your government, and then you're using the police powers up underneath the government to pointedly target an entire race of people and say they're all racist.
Do you mind if I make a point about what you were saying?
All of us are going to lose.
Sorry. Do you mind if I just make a point about one of the things you...
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I totally agree that if you're rich, you're like above the law, and if you're poor, then they're going to target you. But one thing that's worth pointing out is that most of the wealth that people have, like in their families and stuff, is inherited. You inherit, like your house is passed on, how hard your parents worked. I'm sure your parents worked very hard to get you to where you were today, and you're working very hard for where your children are. You want the best for your children. And one thing that is worth noticing is that hundreds of years ago, Black people started with absolutely nothing because they were freed as slaves, but they didn't have land, they didn't have inherited wealth, they didn't have hundreds of years of freedom behind them. And so when you move on another 100 years, for sure, they've built up generational wealth and they've passed on to their children. And so have all the white people. But the white people started with, just on average, not all of them, obviously, but on average, they had just so much more. And now 200 years on, 300 years on, I'm not sure what the date, how long it's been, but it means that for sure, the poor people have it worse. And there are white people with nothing, and there are rich Black people. But on average, if you're Black, you're more likely to be poor. And, the poorest areas are more likely to be not white areas. And you end up with these like congregations where the poorest areas, it's not like a mix, it's like all or mainly Black people. And so the police then go there and target them. And for sure, they're targeting poor people, but it's all mixed in, and race and wealth aren't so easily separated. And I think that's just worth noting in this whole complex mix. Like it's not an even playing field.
Well, and also, Jonathan, I think there's a lot of points we agree on. Like, we agree that people, sorry, I shouldn't say we agree. Do you agree that people deserve a more livable wage than what they're currently earning?
Absolutely.
And that, for instance, police are overly brutal and overly militarized.
Absolutely.
And that, like, we as Americans don't need necessarily government control, but we need more financial aid and help from our government.
Absolutely. And we need dialogue.
Yes,
if you
like
look at
this
the COVID thing, and it's not just being used in this country, the virus. It's being used in England. It's being used in the United Kingdom. Every country is using this virus to separate us and just really do totalitarian control. But they're using, in this country, they're using politics. They're using race. They're using wealth. They're using left wing, right wing, and they're dividing us. And they're also using the virus to separate us. So there's no dialogue. You can't even talk to nobody anymore because you got to stay 6 foot apart. We need dialogue in this country to get in.
You need more call-in shows like this.
I mean, honestly, like Jonathan, this is why, because I know, like, usually I'm more calm in like Facebook chats, but I was actually really crabby the past couple of days. Like, my anxiety's been up. So my first comment towards you was actually a bit snippy, but that's why
that's what it's about. It's freedom of speech, man. You can get on there and call me anything you want to. That's right. That's what we need is dialogue, man.
But that's why, like, I was like, all right, you know what? I got to back away. And I switched to like, hey, call the show. I'm like, because to me, I agree with you 100%. We're going to accomplish way more if we just sit down and talk to each other. And right now, the media is really good at ripping us apart and getting us to fight and hate each other. And if we actually took the time to band together, we could make a legitimate change. I just wish
we could make a legitimate change in this country. And the easiest way to deal with race, quit talking about it. Quit talking about it. You're a man, I'm a man. I don't care what.
But the problems won't go away if you just stop talking about them.
It doesn't matter if you're gay. Fine, I don't care if you're gay. I'm not gay.
But see,
but the police were targeting and killing black people at a much higher rate than white people, and black people were trying to talk about it. And if you just say, I don't want to talk about it, then you're just saying to them, you've just got to deal with having a worse life. And they deserve to be able to speak up about their problems. And really, we should listen, because, you know, how are we going to, I wouldn't even know, if it weren't for black people speaking up, I wouldn't know about the systematic racism in the police force in the USA. And I want that to be fixed. I want it to go away. So in order to do that, I need to talk to you. I need to talk to Ethan. And we all need to talk about it and be like, well, racism is terrible and it's a real thing and it happens today. So let's destroy it.
Yep. To give you, let me ask
you. The thing about racism is, go ahead, Eve.
You and I can't assume. Are you straight like me?
Yes, I'm straight. I'm not gay.
So you and I have never really had the struggle of trying to, how do I word this? We don't know what it's like to be gay. And for you and I, it's very easy to be like, dude, who cares? Like, because you and I, if someone wants to be gay, we don't care, let them. But the problem is there are so many people who don't think like you and I. There are people that fight to not only restrict the rights of gay and other people, but they want their businesses to be able to refuse people of the LGBTQ community. And so you and I aren't having that same struggle. We're not walking into a place and worried about not getting service because we're straight. That just doesn't happen. But this other group of people does have that happen.
Gay people have only been allowed to get married in the USA for 6 years. So like there are no gay marriages in your whole country that are older than 6 years. And quite a lot of straight people's marriages are a lot older than 6 years. So
I actually didn't know that.
Wow. I don't know. That's just not my circle. I don't keep up with it. I mean, I don't know.
Well, that's fine. If you're not part of the problem,
in the country actually say no, you can't come in here because you're gay. I mean, is it something that's
it does happen?
Is it large? Would you say 90%, 99%, or is it like 10%? If it's like 10% of the restaurants, you just boycott them. You don't go there. Simple.
Yeah, but why should you have to deal with that?
Right. And again, it's easy for you and I, but there are people, think about it in the South. I have had people reach out to me.
I live in the South.
I know that's what I'm saying. So you know, like I have had people reach out to me that have gotten kicked out, kids getting kicked out of their homes for being gay. And it's like, this shit needs to stop. Like,
where can you go?
Like you and I, in my opinion, it is our job because we have the advantage to stand up and not let these people get oppressed. Like nobody should be kicked out of a restaurant.
But the thing is, like that goes to the parents, okay? So that goes to generational, right? This is not something that's just going to be accepted within weeks or years. It's going to take time. But as the younger population gets older, they're more receptive of it. Eventually, there won't be that anymore. They're going to have to be tough to begin with because some people are still stuck in their ways. If you go, say, let's hypothetically, if you were to go get some Indians from some Amazon tribe or something like that, that hasn't lived in society like we do. It's grown up in the jungle. And we brought them to our society. We would think they were savage.
They would think we were savage. They probably don't hate gay people.
Over time, they would accept it. It's like it's going to have to be something that goes over time. If someone boycotts you at a restaurant, don't go to a fucking restaurant. Go to another restaurant. Say, fuck you. I ain't got to eat at your restaurant. I ain't got to give you my money. Unless it's a whole bunch, you know. No one's passed a law in the government that says, hey, you can't do this, you can't do that. I mean, that's what we got to do, because if we just use laws to do everything, none of us are going to be free. And I know England is a whole lot less free than we are over here.
Well, there's nowhere in the country that's allowed to say, I'm not going to serve you, whereas maybe there are in the USA. I know that in like several states in the USA, if I moved there and wanted to start a family, I wouldn't be allowed to. It's like against the law or whatever. There's no protections, and no one will serve me because no one will allow me to adopt, because all of the adoption agencies are Christian and none of them will allow me to. And so I just can't have a family, and there are kids that will just go without a parent. And I just think it's completely bullshit. What's the point? Who's free? Who gets freedom from that? Everyone loses. It's just pointless, irrational prejudice that makes my life worse. It makes children's lives worse, and it benefits no one. And we could just make a law saying it's illegal to say you're not allowed to have trans people. Huh?
That's what I'm getting at. How do you change that? Do you take the
just make it against the law?
So that's sorry.
In the UK, it's against the law for you to say you're not allowed to adopt because you're LGBT, and so now everyone can adopt, and the problem's just solved. And we could just do that in the USA. Like half the US states or something like that have that law already, and some have had it for a long time. You know, some other states could just catch up.
I'm not familiar with that topic, so I can't really debate.
Yeah, well, it's just the same. Like if we just say to someone, you're not allowed to ban someone from your restaurant just because they're black, then no one loses. Like the only people that lose out are hateful racists, and I just don't care about them at all. So
agreed. So hey, Jonathan.
Yeah, but I mean, how are you going to get rid of all? I mean, you have to really.
I won't get rid of the racists, okay, but I'll just get rid of racist restaurants.
People that are racist, okay. Does that affect you? I mean, how do you get rid of them? Do you pass laws until they no longer exist? Do you put them all in chains?
But you can make it less acceptable.
Throughout history of the world, there are going to be racist people. You're not going to pass laws to make people unracist.
When racists, when the law persecutes racists, or persecutes is the wrong word, when the law disagrees with racists, then the racists don't feel very empowered. But if the law says, oh, it's okay to be a racist, then they all feel like justified in doing it. They're not going to change their way. But if their business...
I don't know any laws in this country that's okay to be racist. I mean,
no.
I mean, we got freedom of speech. You can say what you want.
You can.
You should be able to say what you want.
But you've got protections for race in every state now. So
yeah, we got protections for freedom.
Hey, sorry to cut you off, Jonathan.
And if we can't speak, then we're not free. Okay.
Sorry to cut you off. This has been a really good call.
This is your show, man.
We do have to move on to the next caller, but I will say I'm really glad you called. I'm glad we were able to have a more civil conversation than what was started on Facebook. So thank you for taking the time.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Thanks for the call, man. Enjoyed your show. I'm sorry I just talked over y'all. I enjoyed talking to y'all.
No, you're good.
Have dialogue. That's the thing. Dialogue. It doesn't matter what people feel or think. It doesn't matter what they say. As long as they're not acting, man, we gotta have dialogue. If not, we're all gonna lose, man. We're all gonna lose in the end.
Well, and it starts
slaves.
with,
Blacks were slaves
us
in history,
as you said, talking. So, but thanks again, Jonathan.
Talking and listening.
Yeah.
Talking and listening. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Thank you, Jonathan.
I know. I didn't listen much. I lost in that.
No,
You can watch it back. You can watch the video back and listen. So
yeah, I'll send you the link if you like. Or I think I sent you the link. So yeah, you're welcome to. The video will be up.
Yeah, that's fine.
Awesome. Thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah, take care, man.
That call made me so nervous because when we started on Facebook, it was actually pretty vicious. And then I'm like, I got a little emotional. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm like, this is a perfect opportunity to bridge a communication gap, because people, I've noticed it's much easier for people to yell and scream at each other when they're not hearing the other person's voice or seeing them. Once they hear you, it changes the whole element of the conversation. And I think it helps out a lot.
It does. I think though, sometimes it can shift the power balances, not always in your favor. For example, online, I have absolutely no issue like saying exactly what I think about someone. And if someone is being a racist, for example, I will easily be able to say, you're a racist and I actually think you're a piece of shit and your opinions are worthless. And I would find that very hard to say to someone's face just because it's very confrontational. And I think that people do need to say you're a piece of shit and your opinions are worthless. So I know some people are better at I'm just worried that sometimes because like some face-to-face, I let things slide that I just wouldn't if I had the time to think about it and my like little British be polite to everyone mode in my brain wasn't running. So
no, and I actually, so I have noticed what happens a lot, for instance, is if ever I publicly, whether
sorry,
it be
there's loads of cat hair in here, so I was so stuck to my nose. Anyway, sorry, Karen.
Whenever I like publicly defend any woman on Facebook, the immediate response from the fragile male ego is, bro, you're just trying to get laid. And it's like, no, I'm trying to call out bullshit. And that conversation earlier, man, I got cat on my nose too now. We need to be able to call out shitty behavior whenever it was, whether it's in person, if possible, and safe, of course. But I find people, at least with me, I can say the same thing written down and someone will take it differently than when they're talking to me because of my demeanor or the way I walk. I don't know what it is. I can calm people down better. So I find it better to remove.
You do have a soothing voice. So
well, thank you. I just try and because I can be like dead serious, but as long as they hear my tone in a friendly manner, it changes how they interpret it or how they take it, I guess is the best way to word it.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a different set of skills, I think. And yeah, so both are valuable.
And to kind of get into before we get to our next caller, and by the way, if you have a supernatural claim, ghost story, belief in aliens, or LGBTQIA plus related questions, call the number at the bottom of the screen, 951-364-2430. What I was talking about at the beginning of that call, when I said there's like this small group of the left, I've dealt with some of those ones you only hear about on the news, those extremists, where you could be saying, okay, so for example, I had this person I had seen on Facebook was basically saying atheists can't be arrogant and so
they can.
All Republicans, yeah, exactly. All atheists can't be arrogant and all Republicans are evil. And when I had said, like, I had friends that are Republican and I know that they do things, they donate to charity and other things. I'm like, what have you done to help people rather than just sit here and insult? And this person immediately was like, you're poor shaming me. You're tearing me down. I'm like, no. You don't have to have money to help people. Calling someone on the phone, being a supportive friend, things like that also help people. The reason I'm bringing this up is because there is this group of people, which is small, that does try and tear down or rip apart anything you have to say. But it's that the right-leaning media paints it as the majority. Like, this is all liberals. And that's how we end up with people that, have think like him because that's how I thought. I was constantly told that my rights were being taken away. And
I guess, yeah, I guess from my perspective on this is I like this if someone tries to tear me down, or how you describe it, or they say this is what you're doing it's wrong, or you're not doing enough or something, there's two possibilities. Either they're right and it was good, or like they might have been a dick about it, but they'll be like, you are not doing enough to help people and you could do this, and I might be annoyed at the time, but I can go away and think about it and be like, okay, yes. Or they're wrong and it just doesn't, I just don't care. Like if someone comes at me and says that I'm a hateful, sexist, racist bigot or something, and then there is no evidence, then all right. And if they have some evidence and they're like, you said this, you believe this, and this is sexist because this and this, I can be like, oh yeah. So I do understand that people going around saying, oh, you're this can upset people, and it can be upsetting to be called a racist or whatever, but at the same time, like get over it. Like what's I don't know,
I agree.
it's either true or it's not, and if it's not true it doesn't matter, and if it is true then sort it out. I don't know. Anyway, I totally understand what you're saying, but
yes, and I gotta say, Katie, it's not often I get nervous on my own channel, but I'm a little nervous. You're an intimidating co-host. You're so friggin' smart.
Oh, I apologize.
No, you're fine. All right, so our next caller, and again, if you want to call the show, numbers at the bottom of the screen. RAO wants to discuss the legitimacy of a ghost claim.
Cool.
Yes. Good evening, Ethan. Good morning, Katie. And Otangelo, will you please stop preaching the chat? At this point, you're trying to sell megaphones to minds.
How's it going?
Hello. Shout out to chat.
Oh, I'm doing all right. I was actually watching a YouTube video when your Facebook post popped up, and the video I was watching was the one that I wanted to discuss. There's a dispensary in Oregon that the owner says is haunted because they've seen some things, and there is this CCTV footage of the first clip was barely anything. It was just pens moving around. I'm like, oh, is that all you got? But the second one kind of got to me. It was one of those, like, those the pound jars, the glass jars, the square ones, the huge ones. They were using one of those for a tip jar, and it slid over in front of the attendant, and he went to go catch it, but it almost fell onto the display case, and that leads me to doubt that it was an employee doing it, because if it was an employee, I don't think they would have pulled it toward the display case because, damages and getting fired and all that kind of stuff. And the biggest thing for me is the fact that it was in a dispensary. If this footage is doctored, these people go to prison. So
can I just...
The tape's real. I just want to know, what could it be that I'm missing?
So I you can go first on this one, Ethan, because I talked loads on the last one. But
Please,
can I just check?
No,
can I just check that for the British team, is a dispensary like a pharmacy, like where you get drugs and medicine?
It's a pharmacy for weed.
Yeah, medical.
Oh, okay.
We're
behind you on that.
Is marijuana legal by you?
No, they've made it more strictly regulated drug because they're stupid.
So we get in at least in Illinois, for instance, because it's not federally legal, we get, like, I have issued what's called a medical marijuana card. So I have a qualifying symptom that medical marijuana can, supposedly treat. So I get the special card and I go to this dispensary where only people who have this card can go and pick out weed. It's an odd situation because, one, you can only pay cash because it's not federally legal. They can't be insured by most banks, and they can't accept credit cards and anything. So it's a very odd situation. And additionally, like, if I drive across state, all of a sudden I have now committed a federal crime, despite being able to legally buy in Illinois. I cross one state, I'm done.
That's pretty spicy.
They catch me. Yes. Yeah. So it's a frustrating situation, but that's
okay. Anyway, sorry, I sidetracked.
No, you're fine. So yeah. So RAO, you wanted to know what you were missing or what else it could be?
Well, yeah, I'm trying, like, because I, like, at first, I like, doctored footage is always the first guess. And then the fact that it's in a dispensary and they legally can't doctor the footage and it's been made public is like, if this was doctored footage, these people would already be in prison. And my second one was, well, with the pens moving, that could have been anything. That could have been like a small earthquake, the wind, anything like that. But those pound jars, like, they hold a pound. They weigh way more than a pound.
So I guess I do have two things, but I don't know if you want to go first, Ethan. Or...
Well, I mean, the fact that I don't know that. I mean, they could have still tampered with it. I mean, humans are, who knows? People do stupid shit all the time, and they may have not even thought about the legality of it. They could have done something.
Also, like, where did you see this footage? Because for sure, it might be illegal to tamper with it from the point it comes out the camera and gets shown to the authorities. But then maybe once the authorities have seen it, then it goes on Facebook, and then someone else can get hold of it and they can edit it, and someone else can get hold of it and they edit it, and like, it's not been edited by the original people, so it's not a crime. You know, where did you see this video?
Well, the other reason I don't think it was tampered with was because when that jar moved, the clerk actually went out and caught it, and it had it from two different camera angles. So you could see from the two different camera angles that he wasn't touching it until he reached out to grab it. It was as it was falling.
So something that when you were talking something that I thought of when you were saying, you were like, oh, well, it was going for the display case. So like, it's unlikely he would have faked it because, you know, it would damage things and he'd be in trouble. Well, I was thinking, well, if you wanted to fake something and make it extra convincing, what would you do? You would make it look like you're about to damage the display case. So maybe he's just one step ahead. You know, like you when you're making things look credible, you can think of things like that to make it look more credible. You know, it's kind of part of being a magician is, you know, you could do a sleight of hand, but the more unreasonable that it seems like that you'd be faking it, the better the trick is. So I guess
the owner that was saying the place was haunted. When I was saying that when I was thinking about it being tampered with, I was thinking about two dumbass employees in their 20s. I didn't even think about the fact that it could have been the owner themselves trying to pull some of this stuff, because the owner doesn't worry about the display case. If they break the display case, it's their display case. So yeah, if it would have likely had to have been the owner if it was fake.
Which is possible. I mean, if you've got
done it,
well,
or
we don't know
either
that.
the owner or under the owner's consent, if it's going to go toward the display case like that.
Well, I would caution on assuming any one individual is responsible. Yeah, possibly might be more probable. Well, people do crazy things. I mean, we don't know. It could have been anyone in the building. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have anywhere else to go with this one outside of I don't know.
My sort of question with all of these
that's where I'm at with it too, because I can usually, like, I don't do much with special effects, but I can usually recognize them, and this one just it didn't look special effecty enough to me.
Yeah.
So I was stuck at that. I was just stuck at that. I don't know. And then all of a sudden I get a Facebook notification that Ethan's on the air. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to talk about it with him then.
So I guess that's like the right conclusion to get to is, I don't know, because, you know, we could say, oh, well, we don't know for certain that the footage wasn't doctored, and we don't know that it wasn't staged. But if we just agree that those two things, you know, if we just accept that they're true, then the next step is, well, was it ghosts? Well, I don't know. Maybe it was magic. Maybe it was God. Maybe it was, you know, like a time traveling alien or something. Like, to jump to ghosts, I mean, there wasn't like a ghost on the camera that we all saw. And it could have been like there's all kinds of other non-supernatural but really unlikely things that it could be. Like it could be like lots of the atoms in one object all moved at the same time, or there are lots of explanations, and I think that it can be a very common human tendency to go, well, I don't think the camera was doctored, and I don't think that the employee pushed it, therefore ghosts. And I feel like there's so many other steps in between, before we can make that conclusion. It's a bit God of the gaps, where we say, I don't know what it is, therefore God, whereas in this case it's like, I don't know what it is, therefore ghosts. So ghost of the gaps.
Maybe I just want to specify that I'm not making the ghost claim, I'm analyzing the ghost claim.
No, for sure.
I came
this
to
is more for the audience. Yeah, no, for sure. I was just kind of like presenting the skeptical
okay,
angle, which I'm sure
you and I were clear, so you're not like trying to think that I was the one making a ghost claim out of it.
No,
I just thought it was too much to be something, but I didn't know what the thing could be.
Well, if you could, RAO, send me.
I'd love to see this.
We're insert words here.
Can you, after we get off the phone, can you send me that video and I will pass it on to Katy?
Oh, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm hyped for that. Sounds good. Then I can tell you, I can tell you with my expert video analysis skills what it definitely is.
And I can definitely tell you, I'm pretty confident whether I could tell you if there is any special effects involved or not. I do usually have a keen eye for that sort of thing. But yeah, RAO, awesome. Send me the video, and thanks for taking the time to call in.
Oh, yeah, not a problem at all. Y'all have a great one, and I'll let you get back to the rest of the show. Hopefully you got some more callers on the line.
Sweet. Thanks, RAO.
Thank you.
Oh, crap. I always do that.
Oh, no, was he saying middle of saying bye and you cut him off?
I was saying take care, and I was like, drop. Oh, what did you think of your first episode?
Yeah, it's been cool. Had a range of discussions.
I hope it was worth staying up late for.
Yeah, it's good. One of the things about having lighting set up for YouTube is they're all like daylight bulbs. So my brain just thinks it's like the middle of the day and I'm not even tired. The problem will be tomorrow or today when I wake up. That I'll regret it then. But until then, it's great. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, thanks for doing this. It was really enjoyable. I think you were the perfect co-host, especially for that call on race. Like that was really good, and I'm really glad you were here. So if you could, anything you got going on coming up that you'd like to tell the audience about?
One thing that's quite exciting, I'm going to be on the Atheist Experience for the first time on the 21st of March, which is really cool. And because of how the time zones work, I'm going to turn 32 live on air, which should be interesting.
Well, in case I forget to say it, happy birthday.
Thank you.
That is so awesome. Are you excited?
Yeah. I'm going to be a bit nervous too, but at the moment I'm just excited. So I should be.
You have nothing to be nervous about. You are a natural at this. Like,
oh, thank you.
It looks like you've been doing this professionally for a long time.
Well, okay. Thank you. Great. That gives me some confidence. And I guess my other thing, I'm currently editing my next YouTube video, which will hopefully come out in a week or something like that. And I guess I can reveal the topic is going to be called I'm One of the Good Ones. And it's going to be discussing the situation you get often within minority groups, which are fighting for their rights. You will get members of that minority group who will speak out against the rights of that group in order to get validation or fame and attention or to look like one of the good ones. And yeah, so if you find that interesting, obviously focusing on trans people, but that's my next thing.
Well, check out Katy's link for her channel is in the link of the description. We're back every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Time. Next week, Jenna Belk and Kenneth Leonard will be co-hosting. Then this Thursday is my show with Hannah Vaughn. We cover dating, relationships, sex. That's at 9 p.m. And then every Sunday, I have a show with Jenna Belk on mental health. And then also, I need to thank my patrons, Jonathan Friedel, Cindy Plaza, Kenneth Leonard, Kathy Letto, JumpandShoot, Ian Oz, Philip Leitch, Kaitlyn Beyond. All of you are awesome. Thank you so much for your patronage. Thank you to everyone who watched the show. And also, thank you, Katie, for joining me today.
Thanks for having
All
me.
right. Everyone, have a good night.